So you started with customer support.
Yep.
Then you built out this distributed support team across the world, which is that's awesome. Most companies don't have something like that.
Yeah.
And they're all Bitcoin experts. They all get paid in Bitcoin. So now you're not doing that anymore. Now you've kind of moved to risk.
Yes.
And so risk is a super interesting topic. And I have Bitcoins in Coinbase, so I kind of feel like you're the sheriff that's protecting my Bitcoins. So
I am indeed, actually.
So like, how does that work? Like, what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so a lot of it is designing security protocols. So the way I think about security is it's really two-pronged for Coinbase users. One half of the security is our side of things. So that's making sure that all the Bitcoin that we hold, that those private keys are stored securely. That's the top priority. I think that's the number one value proposition of the company, is that we can do that well. We do that by splitting the keys into multiple pieces, giving those multiple pieces to different individuals that are scattered around the world geographically, and then storing the backups in bank vaults in encrypted form, redundantly, and with multiple copies, again, geographically distributed. The idea behind all of this is that California could sink into the ocean and every Coinbase employee could die and the Bitcoin would still be safe. Also, any internal Coinbase employee could kind of go rogue and try to steal the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin would still be safe. So we do this through multi-signature transactions and encryption of paper and flash drive backups that are geographically distributed throughout the world.
So is there a person at Coinbase that their title is like bank runner?
Informally, yeah, that's there's definitely someone at Coinbase that is the bank runner.
Where they just literally like, oh, we need to get some Bitcoin out of cold storage, so send them to the bank, and then they come back.
There is that person, yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a super complicated system, but within that, it's incredibly secure. I think, I actually think it's more secure, especially from rogue employees, than probably a lot of bank systems. But that's my own personal opinion. Of course, I helped design it.
The quote from Olaf, Coinbase, safer than a bank.
Yeah, I actually think it is in a lot of ways. But I think then the other side of the security, so that's kind of our end. The other side of the security is user-facing. So you have a login username and password, right, and you have a two-factor authentication.
Yep.
So that goes a long ways, but that doesn't prevent against certain types of attacks.
Well, and explain what the two-factor authentication is.
Okay, yeah, great question. So two-factor authentication is basically instead of just an email and password or username and password, so that's kind of one factor in the sense that you need that password. The second factor here is a phone authentication. So a small token is going to be sent to your phone, and you're going to use that token to log in. It's a one-time token. It only lasts for about 20 seconds.
Right. So this is when your phone buzzes, and it's like 5 numbers, and then you got to go type it in on Coinbase.
Exactly right. And without that two-factor authentication, you are weak to malware and keyloggers on your computer. So a keylogger is where a hacker kind of roots your computer, and every time you have a keystroke, that keystroke gets sent to their server, and they can then maliciously recreate that. So it's very easy to collect passwords when you have a keylogger. And more people have keyloggers than I would ever like to admit, but they really do. So two-factor authentication helps fight that because these tokens can't be reused.
So what was the hardest thing to protect?
Phishing attacks. So phishing that's phishing with a PH. This is where someone sets up a website that looks visually identical to Coinbase, but actually the URL is different and it's not actually the Coinbase server.
Right.
So they've kind of dressed up like Coinbase, but they're not really Coinbase. And then they prompt you to enter your username and password and two-factor authentication code. In real time, that malicious user is on the real Coinbase website entering your username, password, and two-factor authentication code. So this is one way to, without a keylogger, actually bypass that two-factor authentication. So what we implemented in order to fight this, 2 things that we built. One is device verification. So this means that if I log in from a computer that your account has never seen before, you actually have to go into your email. And so again, like step away from the Coinbase platform, step away from the phishing website, go to your regular email, and click a link in an email that we send you that says, I verify that the login I'm currently doing is legitimate. So this means the hacker would also need to have access to your email,
Right.
Which is very, very difficult, and you can't really do that with a phishing website. So the device verification really halted the phishing attacks. I think the next step that we took is the Vault account. So this was launched maybe 2 months ago. And so the Vault is kind of a different type of storage. On our backend, it's the same. It's the same cold storage, key splitting, geographically distributed, and redundant method. But on the user side of things, a Vault account, when you withdraw from it, there's always a 48-hour delay. So let's say a hacker gains full access to your Coinbase account and they try to withdraw from the Vault. It doesn't leave for 48 hours. Okay, that withdrawal also can't leave your Coinbase account. It has to go to your regular Coinbase wallet. So they can't really send it off site. They have to send it to the wallet, and they have to sit there reloading the page for 48 hours.
Right.
Within that, you also, as a regular user, would get a SMS text message alerting you that there's a withdrawal from your vault,
right.
and you would get an email saying that there's a withdrawal from your vault. You would have to validate from the email, and you would have the option to cancel either through the SMS, through the email, or by contacting support. So throughout all of this, to get past username, password, two-factor authentication, device verification, and the vault, we've never seen it happen. Crossing my fingers. But it's that side of things, I can say with extreme confidence, it's much more secure than my online banking is, which doesn't even offer two-factor authentication.
Right. So for everyone watching, they may have some Bitcoins or they may be about to get their first Bitcoins. One, Coinbase is obviously a great place for them to buy their first Bitcoins, but when they have the option, do I set up a wallet on my computer and do I hold on to my own Bitcoins and kind of be my own Olaf, be my own risk management, or do I put it on Coinbase and kind of let you handle it? I would suggest you let him handle it because of all the things he just said.
So,
and that's what I'm going to do with my Bitcoin.
And one thing I really like about Bitcoin is that users can pull it off of Coinbase and store it on their own and set up their own security parameters. That being said, I would be extremely surprised if anyone had security parameters as robust as Coinbase's. So I really respect users that take the time to set up their own security. But at the same time, I think that people often recommend to new users that they should manage their own security of their private keys, when in fact, I don't think that's a good idea. A lot of new users will, have Bitcoin for the first time, and they'll send it to their home computer, and it'll vanish, and they'll wonder why.
Right.
And the reason is they have malware on that computer, and they didn't even know it. So something like a keylogger, they'll download some malicious software targeted at Bitcoin users. All sorts of different things can happen. So, if people know what they're doing, I love that about Bitcoin, but I also sometimes fear that new users can be misinformed about the security parameters.
So, for people that are learning about Bitcoin right now, and it's still like magic internet money to them, and maybe like they read something in the media about, people bought drugs with Bitcoin.
The video game in the sky.
Right, or the video game in the sky. So, they haven't decided whether or not they think Bitcoin is good or not.
Yep.
So what would you say to them?
So I think it's not quite that simple in the sense that I don't think Bitcoin is inherently good or bad.
Right.
It's more a technological protocol. So like all technologies, it can be used for good or bad. But within that, I think that it's important to understand that Bitcoin is powerful. So Bitcoin decentralizes a number of mechanisms that previously have required a central authority in order to function. So what this means is that the network of miners and users actually control the rules of the money they're using, which in my view is the most perfect democratic system you could ever imagine, in the sense that I can freely opt out and make my own blockchain anytime I want. Unless I have more people that choose to do that with me, I won't be able to interact with other blockchains. But if for some reason, I didn't like the way Bitcoin was going, I could make my own coin and do that. And I like that there's competition between these different coins, that they're all decentralized, and that, it's a better technology. I mean, when you look fundamentally at the payment rails Bitcoin has, it's relatively instant. Confirmation happens in about 10 minutes. And that's if the payment is coming from an untrusted source, you have to wait about 10 minutes. The fee is free or near free, costs about a penny. and it's irreversible. So once you receive a Bitcoin payment and you know that it's confirmed, there's nothing anyone can do to charge it back or reverse it in any way. And there's no counterfeit. There's no counterfeit Bitcoin. There's no fraud Bitcoin. You can't duplicate Bitcoin. You can't make a fake Bitcoin. It's sound money, and within that, it's just better than a lot of the existing payment rails where there's a number of middlemen. So you look at automated clearinghouse, ACH bank transfer transactions. They only cost about 15 cents, but they take 2 to 3 days to clear, and they all clear through one central authority. You look at Visa, MasterCard, credit card networks. To accept those transactions, you're paying a 2.9% fee plus about 30 cents. So that right there eliminates pretty much all instant microtransactions, both the two protocols I just mentioned. So with Bitcoin, I can send like 10 cents to China, and it'll arrive like an email right away. And it's the same as if I sent 10 cents to you sitting right next to me. So I think there is some fundamental power there, both in terms of payments and storing value that Bitcoin offers that other technologies don't offer. So that combined with the decentralization factor, I think that Bitcoin is just something people should recognize as very powerful, regardless of whether you or not you want to use it. That's obviously your choice. But it's something that is very interesting and that I believe is very important. So regardless of how you want to use Bitcoin, I think it's very important that you understand Bitcoin.
Well, thank you so much for kind of walking us through from your perspective, which being the first employee at Coinbase and seeing Coinbase grow from 3 people, or I guess 2 people right when you first met them, to over 40 now?
Yeah, over 40 and a remote team of over 40.
Yeah, so you've seen a lot. Now you guys have over $30 million. You were already doing your thesis on Bitcoin beforehand. So thank you so much for educating everybody on Bitcoin.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, bye guys.